Hey guys, Ryan here. Today we're talking Delta Megazord. So I didn't have this one back in the day. It was definitely one that I wasn't that bothered by. And that's despite both its Zord and Megazord modes being interesting enough, though ultimately skippable. And also in the show it's devalued almost immediately by technically not even being piloted by the Rangers, it was predominantly radio controlled. But to its credit, where the Delta Megazord really shines is in its combination. Probably one of the best 2 Megazord combos in all of Power Rangers. That's right, I went there. So in a year where my brother and I missed out on one of the 4 on-screen Zords, this one unfortunately was the one that got missed. In years that followed I realised how rare a piece it was because of how expensive it was becoming on eBay. And finally, after a long time on the old watch list, back in 2013 I think I finally got one for £50, which seemed reasonable for being pretty much all there. This thing collapses into so many pieces, you need to be aware of all of them if you want your own. The bit that was mostly missing were some of the stickers, because just like on Astro Megazord, they have a tendency to unfurl and detach from the curved surfaces they're placed on. Genuinely at this stage it might be easier to just avoid the aggro and buy the new mini-pla version of this and Astro instead. But if you have to have your vintage 90s Bandai Deluxe, I can definitely understand that. Let's go into the toy history then. Well, naturally, Japan saw it first in 1997's Megaranger Sentai line. It didn't actually have that different a name from its Power Rangers counterpart. The Megaranger equivalent is called Deluxe Delta Mega. As was the pattern back then in those simpler times, we got it just a year later as the Deluxe Delta Megazord. Moving swiftly on to the design, well, much like its symbol counterpart, Delta Megazord looks like a delta triangle symbol. I can't vouch for its meaning being the change or the change in velocity, but if we stretch the meaning a little, it does become a significant change for the Astro Megazord. And the 2 ships do look great together. The same design language but different shapes, a circle and a triangle. I do wish there was some kind of cradle dock included, like we saw on the show when the 2 ships were held in orbit above the Earth. The 2 would kind of stay linked almost like an international space station. So yeah, if someone could possibly design and print that piece, I would totally buy it. The colours of the Delta Megazord actually complement the colours of the Astro Megazord really well, and I think they kind of represent the whole team. You've got blue and I guess white standing in for pink on Astro as well as red, and then on Delta you've got yellow, black, silver and a bit of red as well. Delta's is a bit more subtle in its Megazord mode, but they both have the M emblem, Megaranger or Mega Ship if you like, or Megazord if you want to go on my kid logic for the Dino Megazord shoulder pads. You can tell in subsequent seasons that the big triangle shape thing really took hold as a Megazord design idea. Off the top of my head, we got it again a few years later in Time Force and obviously in Megaforce. What then are the differences from the original? Well, happily, much like Astro Megazord, very little. The one thing I'm a little bit disappointed by Japan in is that they didn't get the red visor right. Theirs was black like ours, which is not actually accurate to the show. And why I've painted mine, though the paint is a bit lumpy and it would have been better with a paint pen. If you can keep a steady hand, then definitely go for it. I did get a little carried away with the red paint, adding some extra detail into the mass of grey plastic on its shins, and also one of the stickers was gone, so it made sense to just peel the other one and paint them both back in red. I did actually buy some replacement stickers off eBay, mostly for the Astro Delta headpiece, but the print quality wasn't great and everything red kind of came out pink, so yeah, it was much better to just paint that stuff in. So kind of shifting into the negative, what's bad about this one? Something that I'm really not keen on in this release are the Delta Megazord antennas. You find yourself finagling them in every single mode, and I'm glad Bandai didn't carry on using this kind of thing again. A little tip that I've realised while in the process of making this review is that mine were looser than they needed to be because the original owner had actually clipped them on backwards. It looks like they may have tried one of my pet peeves, using their teeth to correct the problem, something I've obviously disinfected and snipped away at with scissors to kind of get it back into the shape it was supposed to be. So how you actually solve this problem is by carefully snapping them off reverse direction, and then they should have more grip on the spindle. It's still not outstanding, but it's way better than before. Now I would say both the Shuttle and the Megazord modes look good to a degree, but unlike Astro, don't look good from all directions. There's a lot of strange proportions going on the back of both. Another difference, unfortunately no wheels on Delta's ship mode. There was of course on the Astro. I think they could have managed it too, because 3 pieces that touch the ground wouldn't be too compromised by adding a small wheel piece. Go figure, 90s Megazord designers, I guess. You've also got these buttons on its ship mode which don't do anything, because also, unlike Astro, there's no electronics in here. There's just no space, I suppose, for the batteries to go. As solid as it looks in this mode, it's actually more hollow than it looks, and it's just disguising pieces for later. And yeah, the transformation is difficult. I'd actually say it's one of the most annoying Zord transformations, and stands out as especially bad from being within this early era of the show. The transformation from ship to Megazord is actually really simple, in a way simpler than the Astro Megazord. All you're really doing is adjusting the legs, but the counterintuitive method they've chosen to make it happen makes it far less easier and actually more abrasive and harder to complete. It's for this reason that Delta Megazord has such a rubbish transformation. I'd say I full on despise the mode of connection they've chosen for attaching the feet to the main body. The clips are so tight and they're on pieces that are designed to rotate 90 degrees, so naturally the force required to get it to attach often causes it to mess up and rotate back the way it started. Basically, it's tricky and it requires a lot of patience to put together. I do like dropping the chest plate to reveal the face though. So Delta Megazord had Gatling guns as its finisher, but a consequence of that is that it has no proper hands for a sword or other weapons, though it didn't use them on the show either. You can actually rotate the Gatling hands, but remember that the thumb needs to finish up in a position where the thumb would be. These at least have enough friction to stay in place if you're not bothered by twisting the gauntlets. Articulation is very limited, arms can't go all the way around, and although it looks like it should be able to do like a forward kick, sadly it cannot. And on that, I think the disproportionately huge feet really hint that the best is yet to come, and fortunately it is. And what is good about it? Well, I do have some positives to say about this guy. The ship mode is really unique and striking. The centerpiece to the Megazord looks really solid, as though it's all one piece, which is ironic considering how loose it is. Beside the Astro Megazord, despite a slight height difference, size-wise, again, they really complement each other. They are a true tag team, unlike we'd had before or really had many of since. The Delta Megazord mode is fine, it really just needs to hide the fact that it basically becomes artillery for the main Megazord, because their real strength is when Astro and Delta become Astro Delta. The way you create the combination is actually quite comparable to the Season 2 Thunder Megazord, and more recently reminding me of the Beast X Megazord. Of course, another thing that reminds me of Thunder Megazord is the very black and silver colour scheme, which is actually very rare for a Megazord. Here, instead of the red dragon Thunderzord, we have the blue Astro Megazord underneath. The first thing you'll need to do is once again go full on parts former on the Delta Megazord. It actually breaks down into a lot of little pieces and one 4-armed giant piece. For the legs, well, I guess it was the 90s and Spice Girls' Spice World and platform shoes seem to have influenced Japan's Megazord design. This is the first Megazord combination to gain additional height beneath the feet, something that we would definitely go on to get a lot more of later. Now, getting the Delta Megazord chest piece into the correct array once again requires mental gymnastics to work out. All of Delta Megazord's pieces have a form-fitting place on Astro, and it's this mode that I definitely most appreciate. It's a bit weird, all the Astro Megazord pieces flopping around in back, but they use a tight amount of space to make it make sense, and it's actually quite clever, especially the way they account for the wings of the Mega Shuttle. I have to say Delta Megazord's hidden booster rockets don't add very much. They are so forgettable that they'll often be the pieces that online auctions come without, but they are there to hide the Astro Megazord fists, despite that never being a problem in its own Megaship mode. However, despite looking like a bit of a shaky clip, they do hang on fine, and it's definitely a 90s aesthetic thing that I do appreciate. It is kind of strange that the back of the Mega Shuttle isn't really attached to the Megazord anymore, it's just trapped in amber between the arms. It works though, it's not coming off, but it is strange that it's just floating there. Also, did you notice that we basically have the same arm attachment mode as we got in the original Dino Megazord, only in reverse, front to back rather than back to front. I really like how they incorporate the Delta ship's headpiece around the Astro Shuttle. It kind of reminds me of the Zeo Megazord battle helmets, where a new cover could provide a completely different look while maintaining the main face. It's definitely a better headpiece than, say, the bucket that the Zeo Mega Battlezord got. All the design expertise leads to this beautiful 2 Megazord combination unlike any that's been possible before. I love that they account for each and every piece, even ones I would have forgiven them leaving out. But yeah, everything has a place, and it adds to the stature and weight of this thing in a really great way. What is kind of interesting about the combo is that it completely conceals all the yellow and white colouring to the back. Themselves the female teammate colours of the In-Space team, in favour of the black, blue, red and silver, the male rangers of the team's colours being on show. Deliberate or incidental, you decide. So those buttons that did nothing in the Delta Mega ship mode means that the Astro Megazord sounds are still accessible even in this new mode, and the Delta M symbol is semi-translucent so the light does come through. The Astro Megazord sounds weren't the only sounds going for this thing, as it did have integration with the Roleplay Battleizer toy. I guess they were trying to make up for the fact that Delta Megazord didn't have sounds of its own. It's also why you get 2 rather strange black clips in the box. Again, pieces that people tend to lose when selling theirs on. Anyway, from what I'm told, as I don't have the Battleizer myself, these sounds are not truly unique, they're just higher pitched versions of its default options. So yeah, Bandai hardly wasted much time on that particular integration. It would have been kind of cool if the Astro Megazord could know that the Delta Megazord was attached and kind of change its own sounds, but yeah, I suppose that's more of a want not need. The combo overall is great. It's also the most striking combination we have from the whole season. It's also the tallest Megazord of the season. These two are made for each other. Like any great couple, they definitely push each other to be better, and they look completely different in their pairing. I really like that the new combination reveals some details that weren't there in either of the previous modes, like the new arms and the decals on them and the silver ovals on the legs. And hey, if you thought the Zeo Mega Battlezord had a lot of arm on it, wait till you see this, a Megazord combo that technically has 6 arms. I also love that all the clips have multiple purposes. So for example, Astro Megazord's clips have totally different uses in its solo mode to its combined mode. That they've been able to measure these up to be so precise and work in multiple ways is really one of the great appeals of Megazord design for me. So all those arms do cause a hindrance in mobility. Not only do they not rotate backwards, but turning them upwards in any sense will dislodge the cannons. However, it is a bit accurate to the show and you can fold them out of the way. The Gatling gun cannons are by default on top, which is the screen accurate way to show them, and you can use the axis peg to twist them out of the way or get a slight arm raised version going on. Astro Delta Megazord's main finisher was the flying power punch, and not only can the toy do it, but they actually gave it spring-loaded action. We know Zeo loved their spring-loaded gimmick pieces in Super Zeo, Warrior Wheel and Auric, but Turbo seemed to forego them. It is kind of a shame that the pieces are so heavy with their complex moving parts within that there's actually very little power to the launch here, but I guess if you were playing properly you would totally theatricalize the finisher. All in all, Delta Megazord is a must-have. It brings so much extra value to the main Megazord, it's worth treating it as more of an Orc Sword than its own true Megazord. But on the surface of it, it does have 2 modes of its own, just like Astro Megazord, so you can see why it was considered on the same level as that. I was definitely glad when I finally got mine, and I'm still impressed at how distinct the 3 modes managed to look. This is one that really boosts the argument for multiple Megazord combinations, even if the transformation drives me crazy. What do you guys think of Delta Megazord then? Fine on its own, or really only worth it if you've got Astro Megazord? Do let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to be in the know for when the Mega Voyager review comes out. Plenty of toy pictures always being added to my Instagram at powerrangergram, where I've finally gone over 1,000 posts, so that's quite exciting. Thank you as well to those of you that are already subscribed and following. Hope you've enjoyed this look back into our 90s past, and until the next time, I'll see you later.